Hi, greetings. Welcome. Welcome. I love the harmonica. Thanks for being here, for tuning in, so to speak. So today I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. Try to keep it short, but talk about some of the aspects of what I consider the spell that we're under, the intentions behind it, and then finishing with more info on the moon calendar, some corrections, or new discoveries or possibilities, and relating it to, I heard it's now pronounced gematria. We don't say geometry, we say geometry. I don't know for sure how to pronounce it. I think it's pronounced geometry, but I heard it's gematria, but I heard it's pronounced gematria or gematria. Okay. The number language. Relation to everything. It kind of blew my mind. So I'm excited to share it with you all. All right. So what I've decided is I'm going to start basically like until the word spreads as much as possible. Is like, hey, I hate to break it to us, to you, to anyone watching. Wait, time out. Speaking of, may you, hi, thanks for being here. May you, your families, the atmosphere around you, the land around you, your animals, your children, you, your friends and family, things that help you survive and feel good, be uplifted and nurtured in your life. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I've decided, like, I want to break the spell. I want us to try to break the spell. I feel like I was under the spell, but knew I was under a spell. It seems that that's what most of the truth seekers are figuring out, or people who are, you know, what they call light workers, or people who are philosophers and or spiritual workers. Just really figuring out that there is something going on. And so I wanted to, you know, I've noticed that if I come with some of the things that I've figured out recently, it's just like, I feel like for a lot of people it's too much. So, and I'm not saying this is you guys watching. I wanted to mention some things, and I think I've mentioned them in other videos, but I'm really starting to put it together because I think what has the spell that we're under is basically a trauma spell to elicit emotional dependency from the people on earth. And so I think it's kind of like this cyclical thing. I think that everything's cyclical. I'm pretty positive that time is cyclical. And we knew that on some aspect at some point in our, you know, what we call ancient times. We knew it was cyclical. And so we have the mother. And so from what I've recognized is that the female has been really demonized. And that was the first spell, because without the worship, so to speak, or the honoring of the divine mother and the teacher, then all else can happen, is kind of how I look at it, you know? So, and that's what led me to here, was investigating, the feminine history and stories, and like, where did we go, you know, when one of the first relics or antiquities or, you know, created pieces of art around the world was the Venus figure of the divine feminine, the mother. And we see that even in the Egyptian and the Sumerian, you know, text, that women held great high places. Okay, so I want to talk about like what we do today that is part of the trauma spell, and how quickly it starts. So one of the first things is birth. Okay, so this is changing. I know it's changing. I know that there's plenty of doulas out there. A doula is typically a female who is basically a doctor but doesn't work in a hospital, who knows how to help women give birth. But there usually is also a midwife involved, and also like a doctor on call, because oftentimes people who have doulas will have their children at home or in a pool, right? And so this is changing, right? So one of the things that we do today is people go to a hospital. There's a lot of cesarean. Sometimes people will plan their birth and get a cesarean. And then if you have a boy, it doesn't matter which gender you have, right? When you're first giving birth, you're usually in a very bright place with lots of lights, very clinical, especially now, very sterile, especially now, which there's nothing wrong with, you know, being clean. I'll get to that. I'll talk about, okay. And then, you know, the baby comes out, they're kind of taken by the doctor or the nurses, and the baby is washed off, the umbilical cord is cut almost immediately, and the baby is, you know, cleaned out, taken away, and then brought back to the mother to nurse. Okay. What we used to do is predominantly we were in a squatting position. Oftentimes, depending on where we were at, yes, we were near water, or there was something soft and usually not quite so bright to be there to receive the child. The child, yes, was washed off, and from what I understand, the mother was also washed off, and then the child was allowed to crawl up the mother's belly to the breast. Okay, and the umbilical cord was left on for quite a while. And the placenta was kept and either turned into a ceremony or is actually eaten. And in today's day and age, you have to, sometimes they won't give you the placenta, or you have to pay for it. I think that speaks volumes as to how important the feminine body and our bodies are. Okay. If you are a boy and you're born shortly after you were born, depending on your religion, you will be circumcised. Well, I think that, like, we've learned that children do not know how to cognitively understand trauma to the body, or even trauma to the mind and emotions. Like, it's not until they're older that they have to, you know, kind of like why am I feeling this way? Well, that's a very sensitive area of the body. And I think that it's specifically to encourage a certain trauma in the minds of young men on purpose, so that as they get older and the culture already kind of teaches them, you know, to hold in their emotions, then what is shown more is anger. And then we have the feminine mother, who is, you know, not allowed to keep the placenta, pays exorbitant amounts of bills for the doctor. We live in a world where it's expected that a woman actually has a child, and that she be a good mother, and that she have a good job, and that she also is very spiritual and beautiful and clean, and all these things. It's just very high expectations. And not that the men don't have high expectations. I just see a different training going on. Okay, and then, let me see. And then what happens to the body when trauma is repeated over and over and over again? Okay. What happens to the bodies, what happens, you know, to the nervous system, and then what happens to the like reaction, and then how we can go into certain patterns that I believe have been created by the constructs of society through these other forms of the trauma spell, so to speak. Okay, and then through this, once you're kind of continuously separated from the mother and her teachings or nature, then you have a fear of nature. Then also, you know, on some aspect, I wonder if there's a perception of like, you know, I mean, I think the general idea is that we don't harm our children. And isn't it, I may be off on this, but I thought the 13 was also representation of that. Like the child had gotten to a certain point in his life and then he was ready to move on to the next point of his life. So getting a circumcision was actually that, you know, person's decision. It wasn't like something that happened at birth, because I don't know, maybe instinctually, like, we're supposed to protect our children. And maybe there's some kind of like inherent fear there for the child who is actually hurt. I don't know. Just a theory. Because we have stored emotions, right? And then those carry certain vibrations, and then we respond and react certain ways. Okay. And then the other one is through confusion. You know, seriously, I had started saying in one of my other videos, I don't know if I already corrected this, I might have in my last video, but I don't watch the news, but what news needs to come out shows up. But I'm just like I don't think anything's real anymore. I think most of the things that we see on TV, as far as like the news and everything, I know now. It's not even that I think, I have a theory. Like after watching the guy who does Geometria Affects News and watching how the numbers just never fail, how it is consistent upon consistent upon consistent, how the names, how all of this just matches. And so what I had done, okay, all of what the numbers in the news, the words in the news, the numbers in sports, the words in sports, oh my gosh, I'm kind of, with medicine, with education, with the stock market, you can see how it's constantly being used. And before it was like, I think we're under a spell. And now I know that there is this constant pressure being applied to the humans. And I think it's because we can live forever, or for a very, very, very long time. And like I said, there's no profit in that. So with confusion, so we find, that's where I was going with this. So with there's confusion in the news. There's confusion in even our education. Okay. I think I just thought of something and then I forgot it. Okay. So with the gematria and how he shows the calculations and how they work, I started wondering. I know that symbols and words already carry certain vibrations, so must numbers, okay? So I looked up a video about numbers and how they might affect our minds, and a lot of the videos that showed up were videos about math and helping to understand math. Well, I came across this video named 142. This is actually the letters, I mean the actual numbers as their symbols, like 1 and then, 4. Not written out, okay? 142857. The cyclical number and the law of ×3 vibration. And in my last video, I had mentioned that the keys, like Solomon's keys and Metatron's cube, were actually to lock us into a certain, now I understand, like a whole matrix, a whole, not just a matrix that will repeat itself over and over and over and over and over. And what was weird is when I'm watching the Gematria Effects news, and he talks about the prime numbers, and he talks about these repeating numbers that keep showing up in what is considered the ritual of the elite and those who know, constantly going. And this is where I was like, are we even getting the correct information? And how I think everything goes back to the female. I'm going to digress a little bit, because I'm seeing what's happening right now as a wanting to match the female vibration coming in without giving all of the female information. So from what I had researched before, when the Sibyls and the prophetesses were basically losing their rank as Sibyls and prophetesses, okay, is that, oh my goodness, I totally forgot it. Gosh darn it. Okay, well, that basically, as they were losing their rank, I hope I remember exactly where I was going with that. When they were losing their rank, so to speak, as prophetesses, others were kind of gaining momentum, right? And those that were gaining momentum or gaining the information were the ones who shared the information a little bit more. So, okay, where is he going with this? Well, when I rewatch it, I'll remember, and maybe that'll be the next video. But, oh, okay. In one of the videos, basically, I'm going to pause this real quick because I want to remember. I remembered. Okay. So, in order to keep, so everything before, all the reverence and all of the, you know, offerings were given to the earth or to the goddess or to the elements that represented the goddess, or to the female divine God, you know, the great mother. Okay. And from what I understand, there's two things that we're told when it comes to, say, magic. Okay. Is that in order for these groups to be able to do what they do, they still have to give offerings and reverence to the Great Mother, because that was the one who gave all the abundance in the first place. And so behind the scenes, they're kind of doing the ritual and the magic that needs to be given to the Great Mother, but they're teaching us to follow the sun or the masculine or the patriarchal kind of design, rather than understanding the magic of the mother, so they are still able to get the abundance or the control, actually, of kind of everything, but they're still giving to the divine mother. Okay, because it's an exchange, right? And then for us, we are also given an exchange, because that's also part of the spell. Part of the spell is to convince us of a story that makes, you know, the feminine divine kind of bad. You know, the story of Eve, you know, there's so many stories. You know, most demons or the, you know, the witches, you know, bad and need to be, you know, saved and all that. It's just I think, a way to elicit emotional dependency on somebody saying, oh, this is how people are supposed to be and this is what's right. Well, if you know, stealing their medicine and reteaching the story and telling all kinds of different stories all around the world about different things. And there's a vibration over the planet. And they use colors. Let's talk about the color purple. This is interesting because we already know about what a corona is. It's a crown. Well, your third eye, the color to represent your third eye is usually purple or violet. Okay, so I think that that's another way that they're influencing us without us really knowing why we're being influenced that way. So if everything goes back to the Divine Mother, and from what I understand is the information has been taken from the Divine Mother, the first mother teacher, and kind of given back to us, but a little flipped around. So, in watching all the mathematics and all that kind of stuff, I discovered, or I didn't discover, but I learned something. And I think that number 142857 is actually the correlation to time. I mean, I don't know if he knows that. Maybe he does. I can't remember the guy's name that put out the video, but I think this is time. It's a vibrating, repeating wave. And I talked about how Metatron's cube is like, we're locked in. We're locked in a time where we need to learn, but we're also locked in. And Metatron's cube, so that number is it's a vibrating, repeating wave. And I did the best I could to draw it. This is as close as I could draw to the vibrating, repeating wave of the number 142857. Well, here's Metatron's cube. You see how they look similar? You know, this is supposed to be the Star of David, but I'm wondering if it's actually the vibration of time. And that if they understand the vibration of time with the numbers, with the prime numbers, with all the colors, with the laws, absolutely, you can control everything forever. This number is infinite, and will repeat on its own. And it's minus 3, 6, and 9, which I consider the feminine numbers. But the number actually reduces to 9. And so what I started seeing in everything is that 9 is there, but we're kind of taught to fear the number 666, but 666 could be 999. We don't know for sure. You know, they look very similar, and we're just relying on somebody else to tell us, you know. So with that, that and another video I watched where they talk about the feminine divine, and the name of that video is The Creation of the Universe, the False Reality and the Divine Spark. Okay, so what I am going to talk about next has to do with the moon, because I'm pretty convinced that we're focused on the sun when we're not taught at all about the moon. But the moon was originally where we understood time, the woman's cycle, and the cycle of the moon, as well as the cycle of the mother. Okay. And almost everything in a month is named after a moon. So I have my big calendar. I'm going to end up turning this around so that I can show you guys. But before I get started, I want to point some things out. So what I did in my mathematics here is I started the weeks at the new moon, okay, with 1, and then I would count through 9. Now the next week I continue with 10 and or 1, meaning it could be the first day of the next week or it could be the 10th day within the month. And then when I start the next week, I do the same thing. I include that it could be 1, 11, no, it would be 119. Or, let's see, sorry. For example, it would be 1/10 or the 20th day of the month, okay? And I do this all the way through until March. Yeah, I go all the way through March, all the way to the beginning of April. And I learned this recently because I've been trying to figure out the planets because I think it relates back to 9. Everything goes back to 9. Everything goes back to 9. So that has to be, we already know that 9 is the creation number. We know that there are like 9 lords and laws, and they say there's 12, but there must be 9. You know, there must be. Okay. And then we expand on those so that we can teach learning. Okay. So I had the days of the weeks correlating to the planets, to the 9 planets. So I have a correction to that. I learned that Mercury is the closest to Earth. Venus would be the next closest, but Mercury hangs out the closest and the longest to Earth than any other planet. And Mercury also is the closest to all other planets in our solar system. Mercury, somewhere in its placement, is closest to all those planets, which to me kind of relates to religion, where the messenger is the one who speaks to all the other gods. Well, we must have known that. We must have known that. And so the reason why I'm pointing this out is because I noticed certain numbers and certain energies linking to the moon and to certain numbers. And I think that this is also part of the spell, and it links in with that number 142857. And it links into the feminine divine, the moon and the moon cycles. And why we're, like I said before, like why we're distracted, this is what's going on over here. And like everything I think is a pattern that they knew they could inject into the system, and it would take on its own because of this vibrating, repeating wave that we're not even taught about. And wouldn't this explain like why we're not taught about it? This is what we should be learning. Okay. Okay, that's for now. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the moon part. And there was, and get an almanac. If you can do anything to help understand the numbers, because I know it's not just in the almanac, it's in other places, but some of the things we start, like I have a spirit book that talks about certain goddesses, and for example, we'll be celebrating Easter, but actually Orthodox Catholics will be doing a whole different kind of Easter. They'll be doing a different kind of Easter. It continues past Easter. They do a different ritual. It's a whole thing that none of us, not even if you're a hardcore Catholic, are probably doing that. Unless you're part of a certain group, is my theory. Because there's energy in religion. There's energy in spirituality. There's energy in just being able to, you know, like to me, this is like the whole narcissistic codependent thing, or, you know, toxic controller over, you know, said also toxic codependent, because if we are being controlled through trauma that is even outside of our own homes, then most of us are probably functioning on some minor level of unhealthy emotions, and not understanding that part of it is actually put into the pattern, woven into the system to create, you know, monetaryism. I don't think, materialism, but not in the way that like we form, you know, or like how a bee would form and how everything about them is able to go back into the earth very easily. Like, I think that that's what humans are capable of doing as well, but because we are far away from our natural state of being and understanding our own bodies, you know, that's the other thing. We have a certain amount of bones in our bodies. We have a certain amount of muscles in our body. It also links up to all the number things and the colors and the foods and the information. It's astounding. Okay. I think I went on a little bit too long, but check out an almanac. And, all right. And then I'm going to show you the calendar. All right. Okay, so at the top, I put the order of the planets through the 9 days, okay? Earth, then Mercury, and I wrote also that Mercury is closest to all the planets, then Venus, then Mars, and I'm doing this from Earth to, you know, the closest planet to Earth, and then the farthest, not to the sun, okay? So Earth, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, okay? And then I've already started, we're in January. So of course I started January and I'll just continue. So, the 12th was a new moon as well as the 13th, but I started the new moon on the 13th, okay? And then started the calendar. We were doing a 9-day week calendar on the 13th on the new moon in January. Okay. So that energy day, which is a Wednesday, would actually be Earth. And then here's what I started noticing is like, you'll start seeing a number correlation between the planet, the number of the day of the 9-day calendar, and the number of the actual day of the calendar. Okay, so this would be the second day, and that would be Mercury. And then the third day would be Venus. Fourth day would be Mars. Okay. Fifth day would be Saturn and Jupiter, and the sixth day, Uranus, and the seventh day, Neptune, and the eighth day, Pluto, and the ninth day. Okay, where Uranus is concerned, we in one of my other videos I spoke about, so Uranus is still in the same place. It still falls on the 7th day. And throughout many writings and some in the Hebrew text, another video I happened upon, where it talks about Sabbath relating to the moon, but the 7th day being the one day that they don't do anything. Well, that would make sense with Uranus and its energies on certain days when it relates to the new moon. Okay, so then we start over. So here we have Earth Day, and it would be the 1st or the 10th day. And notice how there's an 11 or 2, okay? And then we have Mercury, and it's either the 2nd day or the 11th day. And again, Mercury, this would make sense because Mercury relates to Gemini, and Gemini is in this kind of form in it too, okay? And then we have Venus in the 3rd day or the 12th day, and 12th goes into 24 twice. I thought that was interesting. Venus. Then Mars, and it would be the 4th or the 13th day, and then Saturn would be the 5th, or the 4th or the 13th day, and then the 5th or the 14th day, and then Jupiter, and we just this was yesterday. Today is Friday. No, this is 2 days ago. Okay, and then we also had the beginning of the full moon, right? So the full moon, Jupiter, and then yesterday was a date, Uranus, right? And notice it would be the 7th or the 16th day, right? Okay. And then Neptune, the 17th or the 8th day. And then Pluto, the 9th day or the 18th day. So then the 31st would be either the 1st day, the 10th day, or the 19th day. Okay. Then we have February. This is where we begin February. I'm just going to jump the calendar. So again, I have the planets at the top. Okay. And so this would be the 31st of January. So it would be the 1st, the 10th, or the 19th day. And then Monday, February 1st. Would be Mercury. It would be the 2nd, the 11th, or the 20th day. Okay? And then we have Venus. And then we have the 4th, the 12th, or the 21st day. And then we have the 3rd, which would be the 4th, the 13th, or the 22nd day. So this is where I noticed you would still see the number in relation to the day, because we have Mercury, the 1st, and we have 1, and then the 1. And then we have Venus. And we have the 2nd, and then you see that it would be the 12th day. So there's the 2 with the moon. It could be the 12th day, okay? And then with the moon, it's the 3rd. So it's the 13th day. It's also Mars, right? So then this would be the 5th, the 14th, or the 23rd day. So I just continue. And then you see Jupiter and Uranus. And I just keep continuing. So here we're at the 27th day of the month. So this would be the last day of the month. And it's also Pluto, okay? So then I'm guessing there would be a day out, and I actually wonder if this would be the Sabbath day that they talk about, or the day out of time, or is this maybe why we don't fully understand the Mayan calendar? Because the new moon actually is on the 10th. Well, it starts on the 9th, and then the 10th, and then the 11th. I know. Does it start on it? No. Okay. So the first day of the new moon is on the 10th, then the 11th, and then the 12th. So this is the 9th. This is the last day. So this wouldn't be the first day of the new month. We wait until the new moon. So I think this would be a day out of time, so to speak, or a day that would be kind of given to the mother or given to just that space and time. It would be a day out of time. And then they would start again on the 10th, or the first day of the new moon. So we see we have 1 and then 1. And then we have 2 and then it matches. And then look, it's also Mercury Day. But they have us under the impression that these are the days of the week and that these are the planets. And rarely do the actual planets that we celebrate on those days actually fall on those days. Okay? Like Jupiter. Yeah, I don't see Jupiter on here landing on a Thursday, which is what Thursday is named for, almost anywhere on here. The only days that sometimes match are Saturn and Mars, I think. Anyhow, so we continue. 3. 1 and 2 equals 3. 1 and 3 equals 4. 1 and 4 equals 5. Jupiter. 1 and 5 equals 6. So I actually wonder if the Gregorian calendar matches to the numbers of the moon in secret. Because here they're showing up. They're still showing up, but we wouldn't know it. Okay. And then the 19th. So we start over. 9 plus 1 is 10. So the first or the 10th day, right? And then there we have Mercury going with the 2. And then we have it's the 2nd day or the 11th day. Matches with the 2. And then we go and we can just continue. 2 and 1 is 3. It's either the 12th or the 3rd day. Then it's Venus and Mars. And you see 4th or 13th day. 2 and 2 equals 4. 2 and 3 equals 5. So also does the 13th, or the 4, 1 and 4 is also 5, right? So we see 5, 5, 5. It could be triple numbers happening even in their energetics, like when they're doing the ritual, so to speak, because we don't know what's happening. But I'm thinking that this is actually what's going on. And this is basically the magic that they use. Okay, all the way through the entire month. Okay, all the way through the entire month. And then here we are at the full moon. And then Pluto. So this would be the last day of that week. And that's also on here, they have that it's still a full moon. Oh, that reminds me. So the app that I have to check the moon is called Moon 3D. And it just basically gives you where the moon is every day. And so according to my moon app, this is actually no longer a full moon. But I think actually the full moon probably ends the 27th that morning. But then by that evening of the 27th, we're into waning gibbons. And that's what I figure for when we say 2 to 3 whole days. It's actually like, the cycle of the moon, whatever it's doing. And when it falls into the day and where they mark it. But so we're in a full moon at the end of February, and see, 27th would be the 9th or the 18th day, and 2 and 7 equals 9. And then we come to the 28th, which would be the 1st, the 10th, or the 19th day, and then we go into March. Okay, so again, planets at the top, and then we continue. First day, March 1st would be the 2nd day, or the 11th, or the 20th day, and it would be Mercury. But we still see the 1 with the 11, and then Venus, and the 2nd, and see we see the 2 with the 12, or with the 21st day, and then it just continues. And so in March, the last day of that 9-day week cycle would be March the 8th. And then the new moon isn't until the 12th. So that would actually be 3 whole days out of time, so to speak. And then the planets of that, oh, I didn't write them, did I? Oh, I even skipped the planets because we'd be in Pluto. So I think we would go by the cycle of the moon. And so some months we would have maybe 2 or 3 extra days because we had completed the 9-day week cycle. However, the new moon hadn't shown up yet. We would still see light in the moon. So we would do something. I'm guessing ritual, prayer, meditation, maybe dancing, celebration. This is March. The new moon would have, the moon would have just started its cycle. That's what the Chinese actually go off of the moon. That's what Chinese New Year's is. It will be the new moon in February. The first day of the new moon in February is the first day for them, for their New Year's, right? So I went all the way through, and you can see it all the way through, this unique matching. So yes, if I start the first day on the new moon, which would be the 12th, and then continue through, you will start seeing the numbers matching up again as I go throughout the month. And at this one I was like, is this correct? But as soon as I got to the 21st and then the 22nd, I started seeing the number sequence again. And so this is what I think we are, I think this would be more correct or more in cycle. See, there's a Saturn on a Saturday. but here we go. Here's a Jupiter on a Thursday. But Jupiter wouldn't technically land on a Thursday for quite a while. And then again, I took the days out and then started the new moon, or the new month on the new moon. So if anyone has any input about that, I'm going to find it very interesting. So the new moon would be, this is April, okay? So the new moon would be on the 10th, so we start the first day. And then the 11th, the second day, so we have 2. And then the 3rd day. And then the 4th day. And then the 5th day. And then the 6th day. And how these numbers actually match to the planets as well as to our month. And it just continues. The only part that is a little, you know, I can't explain, but I have a theory, are the days out of time. And I would call them days out of time because we would follow time by the moon. All right, I think that's, do I go all the way into May? No, I stopped at April. But it just continues. It just continues. Okay. So if you get a chance here, I'll go back to January. And I'll pause for a little bit. So this way, like if you want to take a picture, and I mean, I even have it in my date book. I put this all in my date book so that if I'm looking at my date book, so for example, today we'd be in Neptune energy. Okay. We'd be in Neptune energy rather than Venus energy. And we're in a full moon. Or we're in a full moon. No. Yesterday was the last day of the full moon. So, but we would still be able to kind of manipulate that energy if we're using moon magic, and then also bring it in with Neptune. Okay. And here's February, if you want to take a picture and then like blow it up. All right, and here's March. And I'd certainly like, you know, some feedback. I know one of my friends was the one who kind of let me know that they do day out of time, that we would take a day out. And I think that's why we can add in, say, like the 31st, 32nd. I said the 32nd. The 30th, that we're able to add, you know, the 28th, 29th, 30th, and the 31st is because one way or another, we were calculating those days in between the last day of the 9-day week and the first day of the new moon. So I can see how the Gregorian calendar works. It looks to me like they still use the numbers. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's quite a bit of a video today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, subscribing, sharing, taking notes if you did. If you have some feedback, input, that would be rad. So, on here, on my own channel, I have videos about a little bit about decoding the Bible, a little bit about Sibyls. I am literally, like, where I'm at right now, my theory is, yes, everything came from the female. That from the beginning, they kind of took the female, you know, knowledge and energy, and created then lawyers and judges and the whole penile system. That would make more sense now that I really get that. Like, it would be a penile system because, you know, I mean, back then, you weren't a witch for doing, you know, quote unquote magic. You're a witch for you having an animal, talking to a girlfriend, for basically being a woman. So there's that misunderstanding is like, oh, a witch is somebody who is bad or who needs to, you know, No, that was something that was created to dehumanize women. Just like we have all these other words, alien, you know, anti so-and-so, you know, anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can create in your own mind, and you can influence the people with this whole trauma spell to, you know, dehumanize, so that a belief system can be carried out, when what is actually happening is most of us are being trained what to believe because we think what we're learning is the truth. So with that said, yes, if you are interested, check out Geometria News Effects on YouTube. Check out either Dane Calloway or Kiamero Ahau. I hope I said it right that time. As far as educating a lot of people to the fact, it looks like facts. I mean, I'll just say, like, information is constantly changing, and I change my mind often. So this information may change, but from what I'm understanding, and even from my own education to what they are putting out, makes so much sense as to African Americans not being from Africa. They're actually from the United States. And that's a whole nother thing that also relates back to the feminine divine and where the information originally came from. Originally came from here. So even in the Bible, they got you on a whole other side of the world when it's actually here. And if you look at the names of the places, watch those videos. They'll help you find it. But there's lots of hints as to the Americas actually being the original land of the Bible, but they put it over there so that everybody's under the spell. And we're convinced that with all the history and all the research, and even for me, that's why I'm saying this, because I'm research, you know, that some of the information is like coming to me, and some of the information, yeah, I'm seeking it out, like this number, like how it might affect our brains, right? It could not be real. It could not be correct information. And then hopefully, if it's not, and I find that out, especially within this timeline, I will correct it. I will share it with you guys, and I will correct the information. So speaking of that, in my last video, I said it was Robert Zephyr. It was not Robert Zephyr. It was, no, I think that that's who it is, actually, the video I watched. Anyways, he's the anthropologist, and I'm biased to some of the things he says, but that doesn't mean I'm correct in saying that. So I shouldn't have said that. He does have some good anthropological information that I think relates to the Sibyls, and a lot of the information from the goddess and the women. And then something else I said, and I forgot. As far as information I had gotten and then gave back to you guys. But those three, to help with like understanding that there's more going on. There's more information out there. And then just to share with you guys, like, we built pyramids. We are able to live beyond what they tell us. We must be, and I believe that we are, beyond anything we can imagine. Otherwise, why all the extra? Why all of this stuff to keep us locked in? Why would you want to do that? My theory is that we are born with our DNA. We come in with a very heightened DNA, and instead of encouraging that DNA, we are literally dumbed down so that we don't tap into that DNA and we don't shut stuff down or keep things from even happening. Yeah. We are multidimensional beings, capable of far more than what they are teaching us. And I believe we're on the discovery of that, what we're actually truly capable of, what we can decipher and figure out. Yeah. Okay. So take a deep breath in. May you, your family, the land around you, the atmosphere around you, your children, your endeavors for a betterment, for knowledge, for health, be supported and uplifted. Don't forget to hug yourself and say good things to yourself, just like you would anybody else. All right. See you next time.